one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mike. Well, our first agenda item today is a certificate of recognition to Sandra Jake Jacobson for her dedicated service and extensive work as the Executive Director of the nonprofit Gold Country Community Services. And Jake, I'm truly impressed with the number of people who have come out to say thank you to you.
I had to say something about puppies and kittens.
Is anybody presenting this for you, or should we just take the certificate here? Okay, all right. Well, we will ask for a few comments, so come on up, okay? Take a seat there. This is a certificate of recognition for Sandra Jake Jacobson. Of course, we all know her as Jake. The Nevada County Board of Supervisors takes great pleasure in recognizing Sandra Jake Jacobson for her dedicated service and extensive work as the Executive Director of the nonprofit Gold Country Community Services. Throughout her tenure, Jake has provided inspired leadership of Gold Country Community Services, exhibited tireless devotion to our many senior citizens, led by example through her friendly, thoughtful, and caring nature, and time again, demonstrated an outstanding ability to rally the community on important issues. Throughout her time as the Executive Director of Gold Country Community Services, her many accomplishments included more than 270,000 hot meals being prepared and delivered to the homes of our seniors in need through the Meals on Wheels program. Additionally, 64,000 or more meals were served in congregate settings. Moreover, under her direction, over 1,000 senior households, many with multiple occupants, were provided life and health-giving warmth in the winter months through the Senior Firewood program, and more than 40,000 low-cost participations were provided through the fun and healthful classes and activities sponsored by the Gold Country Community Services. Jake Jacobson is a well-known high-energy shooting star throughout Nevada County. Under her leadership, volunteerism, and donations for Gold Country Community Service has almost doubled. Therefore, it is with great pleasure that the Nevada County Board of Supervisors recognizes Sandra Jake Jacobson for her years of dedicated service as an outstanding citizen, congratulates her many accomplishments, and wishes her the best in her future endeavors. Thank you, Jake. Board, any comments?
Well, Jake and I go back a long way. When I first met Jake, I had to teach her how to get as much money out of the city of Grass Valley as she could. And so we went through some quiet little mentoring classes, and you know, what you did in Gold Country Services is outstanding. But I go back, what you did in the Grass Valley Parks and Recreation is great. So I have a new assignment for you. I know you have plenty of time now, and I have something I want you to look into. So I have used your name as the probably the shining star that will put Parks and Recreation on the Western Slope in excellent shape. So stand by, Jake. I'm still coming after you.
Thank you.
Heidi?
It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and it was great to get a chance to come out and see how that Meals on Wheels program works. It was great to see something run so efficiently, but also fun, and with tons of great volunteers. You've done an incredible job with volunteers. I don't know how we're going to do this without you. I really appreciate all the work you've put in, all the years you've done this, and I hope you find something to fill your time, something fun.
The list is
got
growing.
some ideas, yeah. Thanks.
Dan?
Well, yeah, Jake and I go back to the city of Grass Valley and Parks and Rec, and one thing she should never do is listen to Hank Weston. And that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense whatsoever. But it was Parks and Recreation where we got to know one another, and then as Parks and Recs faded away in the city and going to the community center, and the enthusiasm and energy that Jake has always amazed me. But with a smile and a good spirit, and yeah, I know your list is growing in retirement, so I hope you take some time just to catch your breath before you plunge back into anything else, and don't listen to Hank. Okay.
Thank you.
Jake, all levity aside, you've made a difference. And you made a difference for those who most need it. So thank you from myself, from all of us, and particularly for those who have who've enjoyed the service provided by Gold Country. It's been much appreciated.
Thank you, Richard.
And Jake, also, I kind of go back, and I'm familiar with the program when it was out at the fairgrounds. So I know that the program is much like the reason most of these people here today is your program requires a big team, lots of volunteers. And not only you, but your team is appreciated for the work that you've done. So,
Thank you, Ed.
would you like to say something? But we're going to do a photo op down front.
Thank you. Yes, I would. I'd like to say thank you to the members of the board. Humbling honor today. That normally as a public servant, you may go out through an agency of your own, and I feel like I'm going out through the county as recognition for what we've done for the county. So that's enormous. I feel very lucky to have had this job. It kind of fell into my lap. I wasn't looking for it, but it was certainly something I embraced, and I appreciate everybody who has supported our mission along the way. It's been 7 years, and in that 7 years, I grew a lot. I learned a lot about what I was capable of. I didn't know I was a fundraiser. You know, Master Yoda over here showed me how to do the public dollars, but the private dollars was something completely and very difficult for me to do, to ask. But when you think about the end result and who it's benefiting, the ask became easier. People who really need this service and truly appreciate what we were able to provide them made that job so much easier. Especially want to thank my board of directors and, as you mentioned, Richard, the volunteers. We have over 100 volunteers that make what we do happen. It makes it not a public service, but a neighborly thing to do. You know, when your neighbor's knocking at your door and saying, here's your Meals on Wheels, or where would you like your firewood, it means so much more than coming to a county social services department and asking for assistance. It's just your friends helping out. That also is a big part of why I do what we do. There's a couple people in this room I want to thank, and I'm going to point at Sue and my mom. This is right arm and left arm. You know, when you're an ED, you call on all of your resources. The right arm and left arm are at every fundraiser, helping deliver firewood with me, restaurant depot trips, and in Sue's case, she's our IT manager as well. So when you talk about teamwork, you know, the team, half of the team is here. The other's still back, you know, getting the meals out to our clients today. Like many nonprofits, we do a lot of services. We provide a lot of services. I think what is unique about us is that they're all across the board. You know, while we have the mission to serve our seniors, it's also with a great emphasis on community. But when you look at the catalogs on my bookshelf, and I did this the other day, it's like facility maintenance for the Love Building, and then we have the logging operation, which is our firewood, and food service supplies. I'm buying dishwashers at $10,000 a pop. It's a very unique organization in that the things that we do are very distinguishingly different from one another. They're not all along the same track. But that's what makes it fun. It's never the same job twice. Maybe it's a little challenging because it's never the same job twice. But the one thing that doesn't change is again, the feeling that I have for serving the seniors. That appreciation, that God bless you moment. I wrote back in an email to a donor the other day, and I didn't know why he was donating. I didn't know, you know, so I asked. It's like, are we serving your mom or dad, or how did you come to know about us and contribute? He said, no, My mom's doing just fine. She's able to take care of herself, but he says, I just feel so much empathy for those who can't. And that again brings me back to, why we do this. Last week we were watching TV and the Barbara Bush, memorial was being played, and one of her commencement speeches came up, and the subject was regrets. And she said, at the end of your life, you may regret, not closing a deal or not passing a test, or I think, what was the other one? Winning one more verdict. And she said, but you'll never regret time not spent with your spouse, family, child, or a parent. Again, my parents in this room, and I don't want to have any regrets. But I have to say that that's a qualified speech, because when you work in a nonprofit agency, I just can't ever imagine a day where I will regret having served my community, serving my neighbors, or particularly serving our seniors. And I want to thank you for this recognition, because I think it brings out why we do it and maybe why somebody should step up and do some more of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Okay. So our next item on the agenda is public comment. And I would like to say that I realized and assume most of you people are here to speak on Sammy's Friends. And I would like to say to you, in some sense, this is premature. This item has not reached this level at all. There's a lot of work, I believe, that will be going on internally. And I think I can speak for my colleagues when I say I believe there's a lot of support up here for you. So, so we know you love Sammy's, but so if you can kind of try not to duplicate each other as we speak, and hold off on the applause, if you will, and we'll just kind of get through this. And do know that will be plenty more opportunities to have public comments on this issue. So with that, I'm opening public comment. And let's see, members of the public shall be allowed to address the board on items not appearing on the agenda that are of interest to the public and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. So if you wish to speak, please come up to the two seats up here, and you have 3 minutes. And I'm going to do my best to control it to 3 minutes. And just give us your name and go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kathy Montiero. I'm the director of CAUSE, the Coalition of Animal Welfare and Support. And everyone here recognizes your support for Sammy's, and we appreciate it. And we know that you guys are going to end up being the heroes, so everybody's going to be very respectful today. And CAUSE is an organization that's sort of an umbrella that brings in all of the animal rescue groups and individual advocates to be a strong voice in the community. Specifically, CAUSE concentrates on animal abuse and neglect. And in a partnership with the sheriff, with the DA, and animal control, of course, we have accomplished so much together with those organizations working with the community. It has made a huge difference. And I can't think of a better community-private partnership collaboration that has been any better than Sammy's Friends working with the county. And we're so proud of the shelter that we have. It's a model for the entire United States and recognized as such. And so with that, you're going to hear from all of the individual rescue groups in the county, some of which you may not even have heard about, and hopefully you'll be impressed. And specifically, I'd like to bring Cheryl Wicks up and have her give you some insight into how important she is to this community. This little powerhouse breadhead has made an incredible difference. And with that, I'll bring Cheryl up, and I'd like to have everybody in the audience show their love and support for Cheryl.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you,
Cheryl,
Kathy.
we'll give you 5 minutes, okay?
Oh, thank you, Ed. I don't know that I'll even take 5 minutes because I just have a
Okay.
few things to say. First of all, I want to thank the board for allowing us the time to have our voice heard. And I think Jake has left, but I want to congratulate her. I remember her back in the days when the dog park thing was just getting going. And we have a dog. We take there quite a bit and enjoy it a lot. So we're grateful for that. And I'm certainly overwhelmed. Overwhelmed isn't even a big enough word for all the community support and what people think of Sammy's Friends. It's just amazing. And I think a lot of our volunteers, our foster parents, donators are here today and members of our board. And there are literally thousands of people in this community who've helped us. I don't in any way think that Kurt and I could have even done 1% of what's been done by ourselves. So we're grateful. So a couple of things that I think most everybody knows these things, but so our claim to fame is reducing the euthanasia rate from 68% to 1%, or less than 1%. And we've saved 25,000 animal lives over the years. So our number one value that we operate from is that we have a commitment for doing the best things for the animals. We have programs that support that and help us pay for medical care for the animals, which we've been doing since 2004. We have a fabulous veterinary community that we couldn't even begin to do what we do without their help and the many discounts that they give us. We have the best doggy behaviorist in the entire county, Beverly Ward, who's sitting in the back of the room here. And we have great volunteers. A second value that we really, right in line with commitment to the animals, is our sound fiscal policy, and we state that over and over. So, we put in a bid for $743,000, but that would get this county $1,147,000 worth of value, because we also put in a lot of money. And when I say we, it's us, because we don't have money on a tree in our backyard. And if everyone didn't help us, we wouldn't have the money. And so over the years, Sammy's Friends, through the help of the community and grants and everything, has invested $3.2 million into the animals in this community. That's been our contribution, which I think is significant. I wanted to say this because I'm not sure that people ever know how this all connects. So we have a community program. We have raised and spent $250,000 to spay and neuter animals in the community. I'm not talking about the shelter, I'm talking about the community. Every year we spend about $120,000 with our local vets for community animals. So you might be saying, well, what's that have to do with county and county money and the board? So our program for a long time has been, how do we keep animals out of the shelter? Because to have a no-kill shelter in our county is by practice. It's not by policy. So you have to figure out, what are you going to do with all these animals? You got to get them out of there faster than they come in. So let's reduce the number that come in by supporting them in the community. So that's one of our philosophies. So where did we come up with, I know the public wants to know, how did we come up with these numbers? And I don't have the time today to really lay out number after number, but we compared ourselves to what other shelters spend on animal care and came out kind of on the low side, actually, even with our new numbers. We have a gold star rating at GuideStar National Registry of Nonprofits. We're very proud of this because very few nonprofits get that rating. And they look a lot at what our fiscal policy is and what we do with our money. The next thing is respect and safety for the animals, the volunteers, the staff, and the public. We always think about our animals and the public. And so a second consideration is not only the care of the animals, but where will all this revenue go, perhaps to another county? And, we're very concerned about our economic base right here in this community we all live in, and we don't want that to go to another county. And let's see. So one of our considerations, our first consideration is the animal, and the next one is the people in this community and how it affects them. There would also be a loss of jobs, the wonderful people that we have working at the shelter. I just want to say this. Most of them are at the shelter working, but we have the most amazing team of people ever. And I compare that to working in Silicon Valley for Apple Computer and Hewlett-Packard, companies that pay very well and have wonderful benefits. Our people don't get paid very much, and they absolutely kill themselves every day. I have one employee who's on vacation in Valley right now. I tried to rip her laptop away from her because I don't want her working. She's updating our website. She's writing, and it's like, go lay down on the beach. I can't stop them. I really can't. That's how hard they work. I have one person here today who, if I called her at 3 in the morning and said, can you drive something to Loomis? She'd say, I'll be there in 5 minutes, probably in her nightgown, but she'd do it. So I just can't say enough about the people in this community and the staff and all of you who are listening to us today, and I thank you. If you don't think an animal can matter in your life, do you know who Sammy was? Sammy was an animal. And Kurt and I were people who worked hard in the Bay Area. We didn't have any pets until I was 43 years old. And you can see what he did to my life. You little monster. So get a pet and only good things will happen in your life. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Cheryl. Dan.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dan Castles, recently retired from running Telestream, a local technology company. And just a couple comments on the Sammy's Friends. Being a kind of a lifer business guy, there's a lot of passion and emotion and conviction in the room, and so I'm really trying to look at it from as much objectivity as you can, because I'm a big supporter as well. And so one of the things I did do is I actually read the RFP the county published, and I read the proposal from Placer, and I read the Nevada County, or the Sammy's Friends proposal, so I thought like I had that knowledge base. And in terms of kind of passing the sniff test, if you will, is that when you look at the expenses, and Cheryl just mentioned kind of how they came up with the dollars, but when you, in my mind at least, when you put the kind of continuation cost of an intake center out at where the current shelter is, if Placer County ran things, the costs are kind of a push. It's like, okay, not compelling there. And then you look at the fact that no matter how you spin it, having people drive down to Placer County for adoption, that kind of thing, that's not a convenience. That's not a positive in any way. Cheryl touched on the veterinary activity, and that over $200,000 is spent on shelter animals every year with the local veterinarians with a great relationship, and that can't disappear without there being some impact on jobs, as well as the jobs from the people currently doing that within Sammy's Friends. And then when I really try to put my objective hat on and say, what if you just didn't care about the animals and you're just looking at this as just dollars and cents, you get to the point, and Cheryl touched on it, where you have kind of a room full of Nevada County taxpayers, and those tax revenues are being shipped, with the jobs, with the services, with the purchasing power out of county. And that's where I kind of go into tilt mode going, And you have incumbents. You all know what it's like to be an incumbent, and Sammy's Friends have been doing a great job, and they are the incumbents. So I appreciate your words, Ed, about, you know, giving this another look and actually giving it a look rather than another look. And so I think that's a prudent thing to do, being as objective as I can. And the last thing I'd say, being a recently retired guy who's a kind of a lifer business person, if I could ever help being as objective as I could in that process, I'd be happy to, because it's a real great cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. John.
My name is John Peak. I am a retired, mostly, veterinarian. I moved to Nevada County in 1967. I have a lot of historical memory in regards to relationships between veterinarians and the animal shelter, and mostly positive. The shelter started out dealing with what shelters do, and with euthanasia. First it was a altitude chamber, then a carbon monoxide chamber, a chamber. All these animals put in after relationships had been developed with the staff. Always have had a loving staff and a staff that cares about animals. It's very painful and very difficult. And finally, it came to individual injections in the way of euthanasia. And over the years, it has become fewer and fewer euthanasias. And then along comes Cheryl Wicks and Sammy's Friends, and I would have never believed that there was really such a thing as a no-kill shelter. And there is. And that's thanks to Cheryl and Sammy's Friends. And I want to thank Cheryl, and I want to thank the board, or the county, for putting Cheryl in charge of the shelter. Cheryl has a wonderful relationship with veterinarians. And we deal with shelter animals. We deal with animals of people that have no money. And Cheryl is very helpful in helping the veterinarians deal with difficult cases because of finances. We lower our prices. Cheryl works with us as an advocate for the animal. Veterinarians are advocates for the animal. We have this great relationship. And the veterinary profession in this county, which is a wonderful bunch of colleagues, truly, truly thank Cheryl for helping us, and we are tickled pink to have the opportunity to help you and to help the county. And I want to thank you for putting Cheryl in that position in the first place, and I want to thank you so very much for dealing with this unexpected dilemma, and I appreciate the relationship that we have with the county, and thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Are we in a line over here? Are these mics working? Why don't you go ahead?
Oh.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Susan Wallace. I'm the founder of Scooters Pals. And I got into this thanks to Cheryl Wicks, who I was getting ready to retire, and I came up here. And actually, I came up here because of some of the things that the nonprofit was talking about. Jake, I don't know Jake personally, but I know that this is the kind of community that many people want to move to. And Placer is the kind of community that's a bedroom for Sacramento workers. So I really feel strongly that we have a great local government, and my main message or request of you all is, you can't hide all that Southern history, you all, sorry about that, is that you really disband this kind of silent, secret committee that got us all into this mess, and have the Board of Supervisors and its staff proceed with, as the vet was just saying, of looking at this and making the best decision for our taxpayers and our animals in our county. The last thing we want to do is send this function to a county that has a huge or high euthanasia rate. And we also don't want the Sheriff's Department, who when they ran it had a very high euthanasia rate. They couldn't have done this any worse, actually. I mean, 68% means 68 out of every 100 animals are euthanized. And you can't expect that to be something that you would have if you were putting considerable thought into it. And Sammy's, Cheryl will say, you know, I wasn't an expert on anything, but she had heart and she had the vision, and you all supported her. There I go again. And I would just urge that we start over and that we don't take a recommendation from the entity that did it so poorly, frankly. I mean, I don't mean to be insulting, but everybody knows that. And Placer is not of the caliber our county is. I worked in state government and I ran the parole board, and we all knew where the great places we were going to go, and Placer wasn't one of them. It was here. So I urge you to consider Sammy's, but basically to get in the game yourself before there's a formal recommendation, because I'm concerned about what I read about how, looking at the shiny new building in Placer County, animals don't care where they're killed. And they don't, the new buildings are something that maybe some bureaucrat thinks is a great idea, but all it does is use tax dollars. And all the animals want is to be treated kindly and get out alive. And Cheryl's really clear about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to jump over here,
Okay.
trying to keep track here.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Weisswasser. I'm here on a separate topic.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is the topic of the Bubbling Wells Road in Grass Valley, which comes out at Brunswick and is also where Town Talk hits, the three together. There's a bank that's being put in there, and this is increasing traffic. My concern is that it's a very dangerous intersection. My family of four was nearly killed at this intersection, and that's why I'm here. This is an intersection that people come off of Brunswick onto Town Talk going 50 miles an hour. There's no stop sign, there's no yield, there's no line on Town Talk. And our little road comes right off there too. So it's a very confusing intersection. And now that the bank is getting put in there, there's only more traffic. So what we're requesting is that the county create a separate entry for Bubbling Wells and realign Town Talk to come directly onto Brunswick, which would make much more sense and just be much safer. With the bank coming in, this is a good opportunity to address this intersection before someone really is injured there. There's also much more foot traffic downtown Talk with the senior living center and the elderly that are walking downtown Talk. There's also a lot of homeless that walk up and down the street. So there are a lot of chances for someone to be hurt here. There's also a lot of children in our neighborhood which are on Bubbling Wells. And there is basically the pavement on Town Talk is crumbling and old, and I think the idea would be to tear that up and simply create a new entry for Town Talk onto Brunswick and our own entry. Hopefully that would be possible. If it wasn't, at least we need some stop signs before, something happens there.
Carolyn, would you say your last name again?
Yes, it's Weisswasser.
Weiss?
Weiss.
Weiss.
Wasser.
Wasser.
It means whitewater in German.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I think your supervisor is working on that issue a bit too.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Hello, I'm Fran Cole, and I have a unique perspective on Sammy's Friends because I was the first dog walker there. And that was in 2001. I walked dogs with my daughters who were teenagers throughout their high school years until 2015, and I've continued to be involved with Sammy's Friends. And I have a unique perspective based on that because when I first started volunteering at Sammy's Friends, over 2/3 of the animals were euthanized. And if there was a particular dog that I liked one week, I didn't ask what happened to it if it wasn't there the next week because I probably didn't want to know the answer. I remember one day going there and seeing bodies of dogs and cats laid out outside the euthanasia room in bulk. And both of those situations have really haunted me forever and made me become a steadfast supporter of Sammy's Friends. I believe that the review that was done was a kind of a cursory and superficial review that didn't take into account the incredible level of supervisors but of support, but also didn't take into account some of the cost structures that should have been addressed. And I'm looking at, for example, the possibility of a requirement that LAFCO review this because it involves different local agencies and services, and I'm not sure that that has been considered. And the other area that hasn't been considered is a number of years ago, there was a volunteer who sued the county, and she entered into a confidential settlement agreement that required extensive procedures at the shelters and before an animal could be euthanized. The animal had to be posted on a board. The rescues had a chance to pick it up. It's an incredibly laborious process that involves quite a lot of cost. And I'm not sure that Placer County even knows about that or knows what's required, with respect to that. So, Placer County, says that they're a no-kill shelter, but no-kill really is a very elastic concept. It's no-kill of adoptable animals, and there is so much wiggle room in how different shelters categorize animals as adoptable or not adoptable. I have seen an amazing transformation of the treatment of animals in our community. I've seen Sammy's Friends unite the community with different organizations all coming together in support of a new humane future for our animals, and I don't want to go back to where we are before. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Let's see, I'm trying to keep track here, so maybe you're next.
Yes, hi. My name is Lorraine Rolfe-Nauman of Nevada City. I've been a long-time supporter of Sammy's Friends. I am a member of CAUSE, who you heard from earlier with Kathy Montiero. But today I've been asked to read a statement on behalf of CAPE, which is the Center for Animal Protection and Education. Now, CAPE is an organization that was established in '92. It has over 3,500 supporters. And over the past 25 years, CAPE has collaborated with more than 20 animal shelters and organizations throughout the state of California. And their aim, as is Sammy's, is reducing the number of animals from entering shelters by providing preventative programs such as spay and neuter programs, humane education, and public outreach, which has been a key and critical component in our county, is the education of animal welfare. CAPE helps shelters by taking animals who have special needs and placing them into CAPE's foster homes until permanent placements can be found. I happen to personally be a failed foster parent. This is the only type of organization where being a failed foster parent is a high five. But what CAPE is stressing is that the programs that Sammy's Friends have created are unique and compassionate and truly a model for other communities to emulate. The success of our county shelter is due to the outstanding leadership of the shelter directors and volunteers, and because of them, countless lives have been saved. Sammy's Friends, in a closing sentence, is an extremely effective organization that our community certainly needs to be proud of. And CAPE puts its full support behind.
Thank you, Lorraine. Are you ready, sir?
My name is Scott Wales. I live in Grass Valley. I thank the board for the opportunity to make my comment on a matter not on today's agenda. My comment relates, as many today will, to all proposals submitted for Nevada County's animal shelter contract, which met the submission deadline. There seems to be an information asymmetry, and I don't know how to characterize it. I'm not affiliated directly with the groups. I'm just a member of the public, but it has not been easy while professionally conducting my affairs to get as well grounded in all of the analytics of this very important situation as I feel it should be. I hear bits of news scattered, and I really feel the information asymmetry it's important to address for broader members of the public. So in accordance with the principles of open, honest communication and community as specified in your resolution 18063, adopting the 2018-2019 vision, mission, and value statements and core services definition for Nevada County, I respectfully request the board release for public review at the time of releasing each of the board's next agendas throughout this entire future process. Please release all of the following as it pertains to reducing this information asymmetry. I'd like to first thank the board for having released, per Dan's comment, for public review all the proposals submitted for Nevada County's animal shelter contract, which met the submission deadline. I wasn't able to easily find those. I was made aware of them by Dan. I appreciate knowing. I've got a million other things going on, just like everyone else does. Ease of access helps me participate in the important things in the community. I'd like to also request that the board please release for public review all related scores and ratings calculated by Nevada County's purchasing agent, including direct reports and affiliates. Now, I'd like to request that the board please release for public review all the related subcategory scores and ratings calculated by the Nevada County purchasing agent, affiliates, and associates. Where by subcategory, I request scores and ratings for all RFP items by listed item, as outlined in section 6, pages 9 and 10 of the RFP Animal Shelter Services document, especially section 6.2.1, all the lettered items, section 6.2.2, all the lettered items, 6.2.3, all the lettered items, 6.3.1, all the lettered items, 6.3.2, all the lettered items. It's the spirit of this request in the detail that I believe allows the public to process the information that all of us need to evaluate in order to make the right decision for the county. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Scott. You can give those requests to our clerk of the board, too.
Thank you. I promise to do so. Thank you for asking.
Good morning. My name's Kim Sterla. I am the Executive Director of Animal Place. We're a shelter on McCourtney that services farm animals in our community and elsewhere. We have about 25,000 members, 2,000 of which live in Nevada County. Before I co-founded Animal Place 30 years ago, I was operating a humane society with an animal control contract in San Mateo County. So I am intimately aware of the complexities of running an animal shelter and doing it well. I have worked with dozens and dozens of municipal shelters and humane societies and SPCAs over the years. Some are great, some not so great, and there's a few that are kind of crummy. Sammy's Friends, I wouldn't categorize it as a great shelter. I would categorize it as an exceptional shelter. And we have Cheryl Wicks to thank for that. The powerful, strong, tenacious compassionate leadership that she directs the shelter is something unsurpassed. And her team of volunteers, I am so proud of the shelter that we have in our county. It is truly, truly exceptional. I know the Board of Supervisors that you have budget constraints, and I respect that. You've got a really tough job. But let's not lose sight that Sammy's Friends is saving us money. The creativity with their fundraising events, the team of volunteers that Cheryl has encouraged, motivated, welcomed into the shelter, that subsidize all those services, they are saving taxpayer dollars. So I urge you to please renew the contract with Sammy's Friends. And thank you very much for the time and the ability to express our views.
Thank you, Kim. We'll go,
Hello, Pamela Gorman of Rescue for Pet's Sake, a local nonprofit organization located right in downtown Grass Valley, 120 Bank Street. And we've been in existence for about, probably a little over 2 years now. It's very successful. And I'm talking on behalf of all of our rescue organizations, nonprofits here in Nevada County, that we work together to make it happen. I'm getting a little emotional right now because the work involved has been amazing. I remember going to the Nevada County Animal Shelter in the 90s, and I walked in, and it was before they opened because I used to videotape the animals and put them over the local television station. And I walked in there, and there was an officer running after a puppy, and he had a syringe. And I'm going, "What are you doing?" And the puppy looked like it was kind of a wormy little puppy that needed some medical care. Simple, inexpensive medical care. And he was running after the puppy because he was getting ready to euthanize that puppy. I never forgot that. Well, now this doesn't happen. It's very important that we know that the work is being done, money's being saved. And I want to thank all of you for hearing me today. Again, Rescue for Pet's Sake supports Sammy's Friends, 100%. They're doing an amazing job, and we don't want to go backwards. We want to go forwards. Thank you very much.
thank you, Pamela.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mario Danucci. I'm one of the owners and veterinarians at Mother Lode Veterinary Hospital in Grass Valley. I was pretty shocked when I heard all the talk about Sammy's Friends not running the shelter, because that's pretty much what I have known. I graduated from veterinary school in 2007 and have had the pleasure of working with Sammy's Friends, initially outside of the shelter setting, but now with the shelter since day one. And all these stories I'm hearing about how things used to be here, it just blows my mind. I have a lot of friends and colleagues in other counties that want to move here and practice here because of what I have access to. The resources that Cheryl Wicks and Kurt Romander, the founders of Sammy's Friends, have built are second to none. While the county does invest in shelter operations, there's a massive amount of financial support, leadership, and countless other resources that Sammy's infuses in this system. This is the X factor. I mean, it is incredible what they do out there. We are a county that has it figured out. We should be celebrating what we are doing with the Nevada County Animal Shelter, with Sammy's at the helm, and making an example for what other counties should be doing. This is unprecedented. While my friends and colleagues in other counties, including Placer, are euthanizing animal after animal after animal, I have the pleasure of saving those animals that can be saved. We work with Sammy's Friends. We offer them discounted services to help these animals, and they in turn provide fosters, volunteers, and to help these animals recover. At our practice, we have not euthanized a single animal from Sammy's Friends if it could be saved, whether it was repairing a leg, taking out a spleen. If we could fix it, we had the opportunity to fix it. And that brings me a tremendous amount of joy as a veterinarian, because that's why I'm doing this. And most of my colleagues don't have that opportunity. It's very unique here. In addition, Sammy's Friends has been able to provide funding to several local veterinary hospitals to use at their discretion to help privately owned animals in the county. While these funds are limited, they are impactful. and they have helped patients get the care they needed and have prevented many animals from suffering. Again, this doesn't happen in other counties. I have friends trying to figure out how to get animals from their clinics to an event. They call me like, can you do one of your Magic Sammy's things on this dog? And I'm like, sorry, it's limited. But I mean, that's what other veterinarians feel. They wish they had what we had. Regardless of whether you're an animal person or not, a pet owner or Sammy's advocate, the animals that end up in the shelter are generally there because of their humans. They're humans who neglected them, who've abused them, who've made poor decisions in getting them. The animals aren't the problem. We owe it to them to give them the best opportunity they have in a life, to live the life they deserve. And Sammy's Friends is their path. It is proven to be effective, and they offer far more than the alternative being discussed. There's so much more to it, which the alternative has more pitfalls than it does benefits. I and all of Mother Lode Veterinary Hospital and all of my colleagues in Nevada County urge the Board of Supervisors to do the right thing, and we really appreciate your support, because it is it is so special what we have here, and I can't imagine seeing it any other way. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, would you give us your name one more time?
Yeah, it's Mario Danucci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Good morning, Supervisors. Back to the topic that was earlier brought by a neighbor on a traffic safety matter. I'm Paul Elias, resident of Brunswick behind Nevada County Horsemen's Club in unincorporated Nevada County. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm requesting that the board consider a motion at an upcoming meeting to assist in the realignment of this dangerous intersection at Brunswick, Town Talk Road, and Bubbling Wells. I've negotiated this dangerous intersection for over 30 years, coming close myself countless times to a serious accident, and seen other drivers, especially leaving the Nevada County Horsemen's Club, which I consider is an asset to this community, and I would hate to see that get altered because of, the danger that is associated with this intersection. I've seen countless people almost be T-boned weekly as southbound drivers exit Brunswick at 40 miles an hour and above, and I know, and I want to thank Supervisor Miller for placing one of the signs up there that track how fast cars are going, and we were seeing 55 miles an hour, people coming off that road. They take it as a shortcut to avoid Brunswick Basin and to get to Banner Lava Cap, and a shortcut to Nevada City. If any of you, as Supervisor Miller and County Department of Public Works have done, would spend 15 or 20 minutes observing this intersection, you'd also see it's a nightmare, and only a matter of time, and it could be today, that either a very serious accident or fatality will occur, and getting more likely with the present and future business and housing being developed along Brunswick Corridor. Now is a perfect time for the county to be proactive and not wait until someone is seriously harmed or killed. And we all say, we knew it was only a matter of time, and yep, there was an excellent opportunity to avoid this tragedy if the county and the board had waived a mere $5,000 to $10,000 in county fees and tear up a small portion of asphalt while joining with a very willing partner, River Valley Community Bank, that is wanting to donate property and spend $40,000 or more of their own funds and see that this alignment occurs while in the process of finishing their construction. Surely a life or lives that would be altered forever and the impact to the loved one's family is worth taking up this motion, discussing and acting as soon as possible while timing and willingness of the bank to donate land and resources is on the table. The county can be a hero, and we can be proud of acting beforehand and not waiting for tragedy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul, you might see that big guy standing up there. You might want to chat with him a little bit before you leave, okay? And if there's anybody else on the Bubbling Wells issue, follow Paul out and you'll get some information on it. Thanks, Josh. Let's see.
Good morning. Harry Wyeth, Grass Valley. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that there's work going on internally that will be continuing on Sammy's Friends. Last week in the Union, there was an article that indicated that there were internal documents, preliminary documents, some kind of documents that I take it that someone from the union was interested in seeing that were not being released at that time. I'm concerned because it seems to me that all those documents would be subject to the Public Records Act. And that given the level of public interest, we all ought to have access to all of those. And the previous speaker indicated the same thing. The only exception that I can see to the Public Records Act would be Government Code Section 6254A, which describes internal documents, preliminary documents, that sort of thing, which may be kept confidential only if the public interest clearly, and the statute uses the word clearly, only if the public interest in keeping them confidential clearly outweighs the public interest in public disclosure. Given the level of public interest and involvement in this issue, it seems to me that that exception could not possibly apply, and that all the documents, memoranda, notes of meetings, emails, reports, whatever's going on internally that we don't know about ought to be released to all of us, to the union, and to the public. So I hope that you'll see to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. You can, that microphone should be working right there, ma'am. Is it there?
We don't see one. I think this is the only one.
No, there's another one there. Oh, I see.
Good morning. I'm Jan Friend, and I'm also here as a resident of the Bubbling Wells Road, requesting that the board consider a future agenda item regarding this intersection. And this intersection is the confluence of Bubbling Wells, Town Talk, and Brunswick Road. Initially, this intersection wasn't a problem until a few years ago that it was paved all the way up to Old Tunnel. And so now what you have are folks exiting off of Brunswick at 40 miles an hour onto Town Talk, maybe even higher than that, as you heard from Paul Elias. You also have the residents of Bubbling Wells, Borum Mine, and Crystal Springs accessing their mailboxes and paper boxes right there at that intersection. So you have them on foot crossing the intersection, parking their cars there to reach the boxes. And finally, the Horsemen's, they hold large events, and when all the folks are trying to leave at one time, they end up blocking the intersection. So you really have the perfect storm: pedestrians, cars, and speed. We've all witnessed or experienced, as you heard also, almost daily incidents there of injury accidents that are going to happen. And we've all said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that's going to happen. So River Valley Community Bank is stepping up to the plate and paying out of their pockets somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000 to assist in the realignment of Town Talk over to Timberwoods subdivision that's going in there. And it's come to our knowledge that possibly now the county does not want to spend the money to rip up the portion of Town Talk from the bank to Bubbling Wells to eliminate this terrible intersection. So we're asking that the county do step up to the plate, spend that money. It's going to be a small cost in relation to a future lawsuit over an accident at that intersection. So we thank you for consideration in placing this on a future agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Nancy?
Good morning. My name is Nancy Baglietto, and I am the extremely proud resident of Nevada County. As a recent transplant from the Bay Area and former executive director of an animal shelter in the Bay Area, I'm here to speak on behalf of Sammy's Friends. It took all of about 5 minutes before I ended up on their doorstep. Their organization has been kind of on my radar for quite some time. animal shelter in the Bay Area is very similar in the sense that it was a public-private partnership leveraging public dollars with private support specifically for medical care, which allowed us to have a 99% live release rate as well as Sammy's. You know, it's really extraordinary how many people love their animals. They are a huge part of our lives. I mean, they wiggle into our homes, they snuggle up with us, and they change the way in which we see the world. I have 2 children that I'm kind of an empty nester at this point, so I have 4 dogs recently, and 2 of them I've lost in the last 3 weeks. It's been kind of tremendous tragedy for me. And so I come here today to support Cheryl, support Kurt, support this amazing organization. And I am so proud to be a resident of this county. I know most of you, and I see you at events. I see you on all sorts of issues. I just think that you're doing an amazing job of running this county. And I love the staff as well. And I can't imagine that you all would not be on the right side of this issue as it relates to making sure that Sammy's Friends continues to have the contract for this organization, for this, area. I mean, for Nevada County to continue to have Sammy's Friends is critical. So I thank you. I don't want to be too duplicative, but I did want to say that the work that you all together with Sammy's Friends have accomplished is nothing short of extraordinary. And animal welfare isn't what it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. The expectations are much higher. We've all come to understand that, these high euthanasia rates are just not necessary. And if we work together, we can accomplish way more. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Sir?
Good morning. My name is Seth Schwinn, and I live in Grass Valley, and I volunteer at Sammy's Friends. Some ideas are recognized as positive incentives and right actions, and no kill is one of those ideas. Sammy's Friends is a smart community of dedicated, creative, inspirational people. All staffs, the vets, the technicians, the volunteers, donors, and just caring visitors who come to the shelter all provide refuge for the homeless animals and hope for their futures, with no exceptions and no arbitrary deadlines. The goal at Sammy's is to invest in the animals' well-being through medical attention, exercise, socialization with other animals and with people. This is a mission we can all relate to. It's the right thing to do. Animals come to the shelter for many reasons, most of which involve some level of trauma. They may be lost, they may be abandoned, have a medical condition, been in an accident, or surrendered by their owners for one reason or another. And then there's the kitten season. So listen to these people's stories. They're powerful, they're moving, and they're all heartwarming stories of lives saved. The bottom line at Sammy's is the animals. Their welfare comes first. So I ask you to visit both shelters and visit the animals. And when you're called upon to decide, vote your heart. In conclusion, I'd just like to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Seb. Let's see. Now we're over here.
Good morning. My name is Ashlyn Rhodes. I live in District 3, and I've worked with Sammy's Friends for just over 2 years now. Sammy's Friends has done great work operating the Nevada County Animal Shelter for the past 8 years. In our hands, animals have received more medical and behavioral care than Nevada County's Animal Control Division would be able to provide. Animals that would have been euthanized otherwise received the medical treatment they desperately needed. Cold, featureless kennels became safe havens with blankets and toys and treats. Dogs and cats that would have been unadoptable by county standards were given the chance they all deserved, including my own dog, T-Bone, who waited at Sammy's for almost a year before I adopted him. Placer County Animal Services would have euthanized him because he is shy, and I would never have met the love of my life. Sammy's has invested hundreds of hours to raise thousands of dollars to improve the current animal shelter, a building already functioning over its design capacity and showing signs of age. Sammy's Friends created walking trails and state-of-the-art play yards to give dogs a taste of freedom and allow potential adopters a chance to meet their new best friend outside of a kennel. We received a grant to create a kitty haven with room to roam, brand new kennels, and outdoor enclosures so cats can enjoy sunshine and fresh air. Sammy's Friends has done all of this for the animals of Nevada County because our staff and volunteers spend hours organizing and executing donation drives, fundraisers, and writing grants. Also, we can give these animals a glimpse of what they deserve, a loving home. Of course, Sammy's couldn't do all this without the support of the community, and we have that support. Between generous donations and hundreds of volunteers, not to mention glowing praise all over social media, Sammy's Friends is a cornerstone of Nevada County that has proved itself to be the best choice for the Nevada County Animal Shelter contract. I hope you all agree and save Sammy's Shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Paul?
My name is Paul Millette. My wife Sharon and I live in South County. Seems like most of the folks here talking about Sammy's Friends have been providers and volunteers, and I thank all those providers and volunteers. I guess you would call me a user, as we adopted our dog Mac from Cheryl and Sammy's Friends. And Mac sent me here today with one message for you. Please keep Sammy's Friends running the shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi, my name is Dean Olson, and I took the suggestion on the internet to write up what I was going to say, but I want to make a statement first of why and what motivates me. The animal that I'm speaking of and thinking of now, his name is Perrin, and he's still alive. He's a 138-pound Anatolian Shepherd. And he's alive because of what Sammy's Friends has helped us with outside of the context of the shelter. And it's been for a couple of years now. He's out in the field watching sheep right now at Sierra Friends Center. We are Sammy's Friends volunteers at the shelter. We are two people among hundreds of area residents who do this. We're motivated to do this because of our awareness of the humane treatment and care Sammy's Friends consistently shows towards area animals. As volunteers, we have hands-on experience in the midst of how they do this at the shelter, both on the dog side and the cat side. We now spend our Saturday mornings on the cat side cleaning cages, being attentive to how the specific cats are doing, and interacting with those who seek attention. I'm 73 years old, and through my weekly experience at the shelter, I'm aware of a tightly run organization that has paid close attention to all the potential problem areas and has built this into how volunteers are trained and supervised. The animals are at the heart of all that we do, but also the safety of each of us volunteers. This organization is well run and provides the kind of support we volunteers need. We know we are valued for the time and energy we give, and the animals who come under our care benefit from this too. My experience at the shelter as Sammy's Friends provides the love and care and possibility of healing that each and every one of these animals deserves. But contrast this to my wife's experience with the Grass Valley Pound, where we found and adopted our huge and lovable 138-pound Anatolian Shepherd. He was a mess, and he did not have long to live, according to the staff. The staff were nasty, and the facility a horror show. I've heard they have since improved conditions there, but I bet in no way do they compare with how Sammy's Friends runs the Nevada County shelter. I don't know all the details of the anonymous group. I think appointed by the Sheriff's Department and why they recommended to no longer contract with Sammy's Friends. But I do know if you hold to this decision, it is the animals who will suffer, and also the residents of this county that have come to count on and value the services Sammy's Friends provides. Thank you for this opportunity of listening to what we have come here to share.
Thank you, Dean. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Miranda Leach, and I live in downtown Grass Valley. And I have a bit of a unique relationship with Sammy's Friends as well. After high school, I started working at a veterinary hospital in 2006, and that's how I met Cheryl. And I ended up working in that hospital and starting a career in animal health because of the cat that I adopted from our county shelter before Sammy's Friends ran it. And he's only alive because Cheryl got the funds together to remove his eye. It was severely damaged. And when I adopted him and met him, I knew that I needed to save animals for the rest of my life. And now I'm a board member of Sammy's Friends. And I have the opportunity to work in Northern California, Nevada, and Utah as a territory manager for a veterinary pharmaceutical company. And so I've been able to compare firsthand how Sammy's Friends operates our county shelter and the tax dollars that they put to use operating the shelter. Their operating costs are so much lower for supplies and medical care than any other shelter that I've come across in my career in all of their surrounding counties. So thank you for listening to us today and giving us an opportunity to talk about how important Sammy's Friends is to us. Just in all of my different roles I've had in animal health, Sammy's Friends has the most well-oiled machine with volunteers. So there's no cost there for our taxpayers. And it's so impressive. They're so efficient and so organized, and they really stick to their core values to keep animals alive and healthy. And, you know, we don't have a ton of cat colonies anymore in our county that we used to have. I remember when I first started working at Pine Creek Vet Clinic out by Rayleigh's, there was just feral cat colonies behind the grocery store all the time. And the reduction in feral animals and stray animals is not comparable to any other county. So this work they're doing is a public health issue as well, and I really don't want to lose that additional nonprofit funding in our county that Sammy's provides. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you for letting us talk today. I'm Nancy Stevenson, a Monday afternoon volunteer at Sammy's Friends Cat Facility. A few Mondays ago, I came in for my shift. 3 visitors were there, 2 young women and 1 young man. I asked them if they were there to adopt, and they said no. We have a lot of people who come in just to visit. I gave them the tour and left them to explore on their own. A while later, I went into the senior cat room. One of the young women was in there standing by the window, petting one of our older cats. She mentioned to me that school was closed that day because of the accident that had happened with her classmates just a couple of days prior. And they had come into Sammy's, quote, just to be with the animals. This was the same week as Parkland. I don't know what those young folks came away with that afternoon, but they were there a long time at Sammy's Friends. I would like to think that they were there because they knew that Sammy's Friends is a place of peace. We don't kill any animal because they are too old, because they aren't cute, because they're too shy, or because they're not outgoing enough. We don't kill them because they might have special needs that take a little extra time to attend to, because they've been abused and abandoned by humans who don't care and who should know better. They have a lot of emotional and physical patching up before they can be adopted, healthy enough and trusting enough by a properly vetted, loving home. And we don't kill them because they're the wrong breed or because there are just too many of them. Some of you may remember the approximately 100 cats Sammy's took in all at once a couple years ago. It was a challenging situation for our little shelter, but Sammy stood up for it and took care of them. None of them were killed. As I know, all I do know is that these were local people coming to our local shelter, and I'm glad they didn't come only to find a sign saying, "Sammy's is closed, drive to Auburn." Sammy's is here, obviously, for our animals who need this kind of facility because there are too few of them. But Sammy's is also here for the people in our community who love animals and who sometimes need them in ways we don't always know or understand. I'm a Monday afternoon volunteer from noon to 2, and I invite anybody to come down when I'm there. I'd love to take you on a tour. If you haven't been there, I'd take you around and show you a little bit of what we do for our animals and the people in our community. Thank you for letting us talk today.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah.
My name's Karen Murphy. I am a District 4, Penn Valley. I don't really have anything more to add in this speaking for the support of Sammy's Friends, but since I used to be a teacher, I decided to bring some visual representations of what Sammy's Friends means to me. These are dogs who have since passed. 12-year-old pit bull I've adopted. His name was Whitey. I changed it to Mighty because he had a heart of gold. I had him for 3 weeks before he passed, but his life at Sammy's Friends made him into a new dog. And if you know dogs, you know every second is they live in the moment. So his last end-of-life experience was with the wonderful group at Sammy's Friends who took him in because our UPS driver brought him there, and with us on our 20-acre ranch, getting to run free with our pack. He would have been unadoptable after, if with the Placer County situation. This is Brownie. He was 3-legged. He just needed a little tramadol and a little extra arthritis medication, and he ended up being the leader of the pack. I adopt old, messed up, sick dogs because I can help rehab them. I worked with vets for a long time. This is Booth. He was a little bit mean and aggressive, but he sure fit into my pack. And one of my bad boys chewed the corner of that book up. So. This is Pogonip. He is another pit bull that was injured, and it had pemphigus on his nose, and all of them were taken care of at Sammy's Friends before they got to come home to me. And this is my current pack. There's one more that is a pit bull. These are Sammy's Friends. Actually, this one's not. I found him on the road. And I called Sammy's Friends, and they said, yeah, we've been trying to catch that guy. And that was in Penn Valley. And I caught him. He's a great dog. I put flyers everywhere. And someone called, and I was like, oh, darn it. And then, unfortunately for him, but fortunately for me, the guy died, and so his neighbor gave me the dog because my home was better. And this Sammy's Friends, he was heartworm positive. He's heartworm negative now because of my vet, who is Dr. Avery, who asked me to speak on his behalf too, or show our support. And this is not a Sammy's Friends, it's a Scooter's Pal. So I'm a failed foster too. So I think Susan.
It's good to meet your dogs, Karen.
Yes.
But your time has run out.
Thank you. We can talk about our dogs all day. So I thank you for listening.
I know. Thank you. Sir?
My name is Mitch Ward. I live in Penn Valley, and I have 2 pages of stuff here, but pretty much all of it has been covered by the other people. So I appreciate that. Mr. Weston, you're my representative. I voted for you. I want you to hear my voice and make sure that this recommendation doesn't go forward. I think all the rest of you are probably represented by this crowd as well. Please hear us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Hi, my name is Janet Gillette, and I'm a citizen of Nevada County. Have been for about 29 years. I do remember when the shelter out in McCourtney Road was a kill shelter, and I just wanted to share a personal experience with Sammy's. I had lost a dog to leukemia, and my other pet was mourning. So I took a drive out to see if I could find a companion. As I walked down the kennels, there was a little black dog that looked like a mix of a little fox. It was just tiny and curled up in the corner. And I thought, well, that dog looks mean. I can't have a mean dog. So I passed her up. All the other dogs weren't a good fit. So I drove to Auburn. Couldn't find a good fit there as well. And so 2 weeks went by. And at the time I lived off McCourtney, not very far from the shelter, so I thought, I'm going to swing in again. And here was this little black dog still curled up in the corner. And as I'm looking at her, I thought, well, you still look mean, because all the other dogs are out there barking and happily wagging their tails and saying, come get me. So as I was looking at her, a little girl, probably 11 or 12, comes walking up with a leash in her hand, and she opens a gate, and I said, wait a minute, I thought that dog was mean. And she said, oh, no, she's not mean. She is scared to death. So I said, well, what are you going to do? She said, I'm taking her for a walk. And I said, may I walk with you? She said, absolutely. Well, I ended up walking Gracie all the way home. So she took a year before I could pet her without her flattening herself as flat as possible on the ground to disappear. If I picked up a broom to sweep my porch, she flattened. She had been abused terribly. However, she did come around, had a wonderful life with us. I did lose her not too long ago to a brain tumor. But my main concern is three things. Where will we as Nevada Countyans go for companions, or, family members is what we call them? I don't think I will want to drive down to Auburn. 2, where will someone turn this kind of dog in? Because she was trapped in a pen that had some food in it, and someone brought her there. That's the only history I know of her. And 3, I support financially Sammy's Friends, and I would love to see my money stay here in our county. So I thank you for your support and for your time to listen to all of us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeanette. Ma'am?
My name is Gail Green. I'm a volunteer at Sammy's Friends. I have been for 7 years. I'm one of about 150 volunteers. Everything I've wanted to say has been very eloquently said by others, but I have one story that I wanted to relate to you, one of many. This happens every day that I'm there. We get cries for help from members of the public. Sammy's Friends serves as a hub for a lot of people needing assistance. But last week when I was at the shelter, a woman called in tears. She was in the hospital, a victim of domestic violence. She had been accepted into a shelter, but they wouldn't take her dog, and she was lost as to what she would do with this dog. And our incredible behaviorist said that she would foster the dog for a couple months until she could get back on her feet. We've gotten the same sort of requests and the same sort of response from our foster parents for people who are going into rehabilitation, for a lot of domestic violence cases and abuse cases, child welfare cases. Sammy's Friends offers a filler for needs that you're not even aware are there until you go to Sammy's Friends and you're asked for their help. And what I want to say is that you can't put a dollar value on that sort of community outreach and assistance. It's immeasurable, and it's something that they give to this community free of charge.
Thank you, Gail. Barry?
Yes, my name is Barry Turner, and I live on Bubbling Wells Road. We've been there for 33 years. I just noticed this is a strange combination of subjects to be dealing with in one day. I'm on again, off again, emotionally feeling sorry for the animals, but feel a little bit sorry for us also to have to be going through the plan of what to do with Town Talk Road. One thing I'd like you to know, though, is like Sammy's Friends, we've been able to keep the kill rate under 1%. I try to figure out what's changed in the 33 years that we've been there. And I think that there are a number of things that are really significant. One of them is, somebody mentioned the paved road. I'd forgotten about that. That's huge. And I know every time I'm driving down Highway 80, it reminds me of my own neighborhood where they have the truck brake failure runaway ramps. Well, that's kind of what Town Talk Road is like, is it goes off at a 45-degree angle and you can go full speed ahead right down the ramp. And it's a case, I don't remember it being a 40-mile-per-hour road when we first moved in here. I'm almost positive it was a 35-mile-per-hour zone, just where you're making a turnoff. And to rub salt in the wounds, there's the sign that says 45 or 40 miles an hour is about 10 feet away from the intersection. So if you're going slower than 40 miles an hour, when you get there, you can speed up a little bit. And that I've never been able to understand why 40 miles an hour that goes all the way in past Safeway goes through the intersection and up over the freeway at 40 miles an hour. It seems bizarre. The no pavement, though, allows people to go a little bit faster, but the thing that seems the most absurd about why people would ever use that as an off-ramp, there are only 4 houses on the total of Town Talk Road, and it's just as fast or faster to just stay on Brunswick Road and turn just 100 yards down the road on Old Tunnel Road. And I think either it's by habit or some other strange mechanism that I don't understand. Why would anybody turn off on Town Talk Road when they just stay on Brunswick for another 100 yards and exit on Old Tunnel Road? I have an idea. Anybody who went out there to look at it, you would agree that it needs to be blocked off to where Town Talk Road continues after the bank, but is blocked off. It serves no. Definitely, it's not self-serving. I still have to go out onto Brunswick to go to the bank. I have to go out onto Brunswick to get back to my house from the bank. The only factor that there is for me to consider, and I think would be nice to get back on the agenda to talk about, is the fact that it's a hazard. If we get 3 people around who are Brunswick or Bubbling Wells residents, the subject always gets around to, well, how do you drive when you get in that dangerous intersection? I tell people I like to go right in the middle. So I give people the option of going in front of my car or in back of my car. But someday there's going to be somebody with a cell phone who's not paying attention that there's a car in the intersection. That'll be me. So I would like to have the easy answer of just blocking it off.
Again, Barry, for the 3rd or 4th time today, you might look at Mr. Pack right behind you.
Yeah, we will. In fact, we have had a meeting with him out there.
Okay. Well, you know it is coming back to us.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Sir?
Good morning. My name is Don Casavan. I've been a volunteer at Sammy's Friends for a number of years. I see this as having 3 components: fiscal, animal euthanasia rates, and animal welfare. If you look at it fiscally, Lieutenant Brown from the Sheriff's Department said that they estimated that their contract would be about $650,000. About means that there could be increased costs. The other thing he mentioned was that a lot of animals would be handed off to Placer County at an unspecified additional expense. So if you take those 2 things into consideration, you might be pushing close to the $743,000 that Sammy's Friends is asking. And if we didn't give it to Sammy's Friends, we'd be losing over $1 million in support. The other thing is the euthanasia rate. Sammy's Friends has a 1%. The latest figure from Placer County is 8.4%. It's gone down. During this last period of time, from 2015 to 17, Sammy's Friends had to euthanize 23 pets, 23 dogs. Placer County did 762. That's over 250 animals per year. The other component, though, is what is more important to me, and that's animal welfare. We have dogs that come in there that are absolutely terrified. They're terrified of humans. children, other dogs. Some of them are terrified of themselves. Sammy's Friends takes the time to work with these dogs. Some dogs it takes days, some it takes weeks, and I've seen some where it takes literally months to bring these dogs around. The volunteers at Sammy's Friends are dedicated, and they take that time. They work with them every day. These dogs are walked every morning and every afternoon, every day of the week, every day of the month, rain or shine. I don't know if Placer County has that capability. Does Placer County have the ability to take care of these animals, to have people sit in their kennels with them when they're terrified, to give them comfort, to give them compassion, to give them care? Sammy's Friends does. They do it on a daily basis. The dogs are brought out to the side yard to socialize, to learn how to play with other dogs. They're taken on these walks so they can be dogs. They can use their noses. They can search. They can do things like that. The animal welfare issue is the one that I think is the most important. That's why the people at Sammy's Friends are so dedicated. And I think above all things, that's the one that should be considered more than anything else. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Don. And I think what I'm going to do here is we've got two more up here, Matt and one other, and I'm going to cut it off. I think we've certainly got the message today, so thank you. Matt?
Thank you. First, I'd like to apologize to Mr. Miller. At a meeting at the theater in town, I accused him of shutting me down talking about Sammy's Friends, but I think that Mr. Schofield was then the chair of the board, and that was in December. And the board said, oh, we don't need to talk about this in public comment because we're going to talk about it before we make a decision. And then having coffee in the morning, the top of my head hit the ceiling because I read the article in the paper, and I hadn't heard of any discussion about what's going on with the shelter. And it just seemed like a very, once again, end run around the citizens that live here and that call this place home. I could speak on this for 3 minutes. My dog asked me to come here and growl for 3 minutes, so I'd like that noted. Just I growled for 3 minutes. But on the town talk thing, wow, what a nightmare out there. Complaining with the city about the soil runoff, someone put on a little piece of plastic. Complaining more, someone did a little bit more. Complaining more, calling the city, Wolf Creek Community Alliance, going to the county, trying to talk to the county, keep the dirt from out of the road. Now there's some cones up and there's actually a sign. It's been this progression of evolution of an accident waiting to happen, basically. From actually zero mitigation to now there's some mitigation to now it's still, I was out there for 15 minutes yesterday observing it, and it's, you have NID, PG&E, you got all these different people working on it in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. There's nothing that says slow down to 30 or 25 or anything. So anyway, bubbling wells is a nightmare. Someone needs to deal with it. And I know it's the city of Grass Valleys now. It's out of your hands, and I'm sure you're glad you gave it to them. But back to Sammy's. Bad.
Thank you, Matt. I wasn't the chair in December, just saying. No, I wasn't.
Robert Nash, Albuquerque, New Mexico. My comments involve behavioral health. Would you care to hear them now or during the agenda item under that topic?
If it's an agenda item, we stay on the agenda. So you would be called up at that time.
Very well, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Unless it's something that we haven't heard, I'm going to cut it off right now. Is it on Sammy's Friends? Okay, I'll bet we've heard it. I'll bet we've heard it.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'll bet we have.
Sammy's Friends, of course, is
What is your
beyond
name?
me. My name is Lauren Rosovich, Chow
Oh,
Chow
okay,
Rescue
Lauren.
of the Sierra Foothills. I actually have brought in or was requested by Placer County to take a couple of their animals over the years that I ran my rescue. And I brought them home and I was very amazed. I said, these are very, very adoptable dogs. And yet they were put on the euthanasia list in Placer County. Finding out why, watch your watch. 15 seconds. That's all they give the dogs to warm up to their tester. 15 seconds. There won't be a Chow and a Kita. Any of these Spitz breeds will not warm up to a tester in 15 seconds. That's why there's such a high euthanasia rate in the shelters across the country. It's called the Golden Retriever test. And this is a test, and unfortunately, it needs to be rid of. And the thing is Cheryl Wicks got rid of that test in our Nevada County. Now, if you plan on sending our dogs to Placer County, you're sending them possibly to euthanasia, because our dogs here don't get 15 seconds. They get a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. And that was new. Thank you. All right. Thank you for being here, Cheryl. Thank you. And we will be seeing you again, I know that. And with that, I'm going to close the public comment. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. The Board of Supervisors will act upon them at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Board? No? Staff? Yeah, where did the gentleman go?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Phoebe Bell is talking to the gentleman who's interested in behavioral health. I can try to find out which item it was he wanted pulled.
Okay. Sure. We'll take a couple minutes here. Any items from the staff or the public that would like to be pulled? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion Miller. Second Weston. Madam Clerk?
District 4?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5? District 2?
Yes. All right. Thank you, staff, for your patience. Our next item is the department head matters, and the first item we have is the Chief Information Officer, Steve Monahan. This is a contract between the County of Nevada and APSI Construction, and this has to do with our operations center on LeBar Meadow Road. And it is a resolution. Steve, you want to take it over?
Good morning, Chairman Schofield, honorable board members, Steve Monahan, your Chief Information Officer, and with me this morning is Justin Drinkwater, your Facilities Director. Sorry about that, Justin. This item today is to approve a contract with APSI Inc. for construction management services for the County Operations Center development site on LeBar Meadows Road. And I've got just a few slides I'll go through here, and I'll go through some history. It's been about a year since this item has been in front of your board when we brought the architectural services contract for your approval. So we'll give you a little update of where we're at, some of the financial overview, and then talk a little more specifically about construction management services. So major milestones to date. This project was actually in our 1997 Capital Facilities Master Plan, but then more recently updated in 2006, then 8, previous plans after that as a priority for the county. In 2011, we bought the 40 acres on LeBar Meadows Road that you can see highlighted in red there. In 2015-16, we did the use permit and the CEQA requirements to develop this site as a operation center and courtyard for Public Works. And in fall of 2016, we awarded the contract for architectural services to LDA, and that is the architectural firm that we've been working with for the last year and a half on final design plans. And then that brings us to November. This last November, we did a RFP for construction management services, and the result of that is this contract that we're bringing to you this morning for your approval. Looking at the updated project timeline of developing the plot, we're in phase 3. We're just finishing phase 3, which is the construction documents. So we have the final construction documents from our architect. And we're going into phase 4. And what we need for phase 4 is this construction management contract in place, because we need our construction management firm to help with the plan check, putting together the bid documents to go out onto the street, to do a constructability review of the plans, and et cetera. We'll go through that a little bit more. And then we're looking at construction support, so late fall to actually be able to break ground. And then there's about a 15-month build-out phase, and then we'll be looking at commissioning and moving the current Public Works equipment and facilities and staff to the new location. So overall project financing, so we've gone through about 3 iterations of cost analysis on this project. Each phase as we go through, we get more refinement of what the actual design is. So the first phase of this was conceptual design. We hired a project estimator, the general square footage of the building, the components, the layout, the development of the land, the grading, et cetera. As we worked with Public Works and we refined what the building would be, we did some value engineering. We removed the second story of the building for cost savings. We decreased some of the pavement. We had offsetting cost increase because of some requirements, building code requirements, et cetera, especially in the wash pads and buildings to wash the vehicles, et cetera. And we're looking at a $18 million total project cost. Before we were looking at what just the construction piece was, but we're looking at a total $18 million project. And what we saw between our cost estimates that happened last summer and our latest ones that took place in around the January timeframe, this past January, was about a 20 to 25% increase in the construction cost. A lot of that is being driven by concrete costs and metal. So, and we're seeing that fluctuation. I put in here, we could see another 10% increase by the time we go to bid. The economy is doing very well. Contractors are doing well. So that's kind of unknown of how competitive they're going to be. We also know we have this steel tariff. We don't know what the actual impact of that's going to be on steel prices. So we could see some variable in that. Annual debt service is estimated at $1.1 million. And the way that's going to be paid is through Public Works participation and then general fund. Looking at how that, and this is a slide that's been updated from my last presentation to your board. Where we are now is what our current debt service is, and looking at the bonds that are on this building, the Root Center. And then in the future, so these bonds will be paid off in 1920 budget year, and that $1.2 million of current debt service will be shifted over for the future of paying the debt service on the new corporation yard. So you can see in 2021, That'll be $855,000 of that 1.2 million. So the outcomes below, we'll have a new operations yard, and overall, $345,000 less in annual debt service, the net between what we're currently paying and what we're projecting to pay. And of course, that 345 savings is determined on if we can stay within that $18 million budget, and there's variables in that. Looking at ASPI or APSI, construction management services. So we did a comprehensive RFP. Construction management services are really the critical factor of success for a project of this magnitude and complexity. We have it broken into pre-construction services of what we need from this outfit to help us get that bid onto the street, and then construction services that'll happen after we break ground. And I won't go through all of these, but they're pretty basic, following industry standard components to successful project management for this type of development. And then when we hire a construction management firm, we're not just hiring one person. So if we look in the middle of this chart, we have a project manager who's going to be full-time during that 15-month development process, construction, and but there's a whole team from the firm that is supporting it. So you have the project executive that's going to do quality control and oversight, problem management. We have project engineers that will be brought in, special inspections. So every component and is going to be inspected, from compaction to steel to all the different construction elements. And a lot of this is going to be, or I should say a majority of these inspections are going to go to a local company, Holdridge and Cole, who was a subcontractor on this RFP proposal. Then we have estimators, and then we have schedulers that'll be providing services. So upcoming items that you'll see as this project moves forward after this point is we have a contract amendment that'll be coming at your next meeting for LDA to help perform the utilities design and the PG&E application for utilities for the site. Then working closely with CEO's office and county council, looking at financial advisor and bond counsel RFP to go out to do the bonds and put those out on the market for people to bid on. And then in August, September, October, the final financing package will come to your board for approval. We'll have the construction bid package come to your board for approval, and then we'll put that on the street. And then in October, the final construction award contract. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions your board may have.
Is that what it's going to look like?
That is an example. That's not what ours will look like, but that's a recent, I believe that was Stanislaus County.
Okay. Yeah, sure, Heidi.
Thank you. Can you go back to the slide just one or two ago where you, that one? On your spreadsheet, it looks like you actually have two full-time people, the project manager and the project engineer, pretty much full-time for the entire 16 months.
Yeah, I think the project manager is the on-site personnel, and then there's the project engineer is in their main office and correlates on items, but they're assigned to the project for the entirety of the project. That doesn't necessarily mean they're working on our particular project, the whole scope of the
Well, you've
period.
identified 168 hours a month for both of those, so that's full-time for both of those people.
So it's, you know,
So if they're not working full-time on our project, they shouldn't be
they don't
charging
bill us.
to, okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And so the amount is coming to $50,000 a month, basically, plus incidentals. And that 50,000 then is covering these 5 people? I'm looking at the spreadsheet again that you guys provided, the executive manager, engineer, scheduler, and estimator.
Correct, Supervisor.
Okay.
And it is they'll track their time and bill us against the time.
Okay. And how many people, how many of our own staff are also going to be working on this full-time or part-time?
So for our staff, it'll be Justin, who will be providing oversight, and then Public Works will have a project manager that'll be providing some oversight on this as well. But the majority of the construction management services will be coming from this firm.
Okay. On the bonds, so neither of these bonds have gone, one of them's out, one of them has not gone out, is that correct? Or are they both still to be?
No bonds have gone out for this
Okay.
project yet.
Okay.
And all that'll come to your board for approval.
Right, okay. So I'm watching out in the public how the tariff issue is, making projects almost impossible to build now. So and I see that, you're reflecting that that's potentially an issue here too. At what point, if the price continues to go up, at what point do you come back and do we rethink this project?
Before we award the bid to the construction firm to
Okay.
actually bid it, it'll be a decision point for your board to say, this has been too much, maybe we want to wait and wait for the next recession or, more favorable times. The challenge that we have is you have materials costs are always going to go up. Right? And over time, projects always get more expensive. We just saw that in the last 12 months on this project, just in the estimation. The other factor that we have, our bond rates are still historically low right now, but over time, we're seeing that the Fed is saying that they're going to increase rates 3 to 4 times over the next year. So cost may go down, but then cost of money goes up.
So is there a plan maybe is there a possibility that it can be scaled back rather than put on hold completely if the costs just end up going up exorbitantly?
Supervisors, that is a option, and we have looked at that. How can we scale that? Can we take a smaller footprint for the building? So there are some options there.
Yeah, I know that wouldn't be the preferred option, but just, I'm just looking ahead at what will we do if things end up being really expensive, so. Okay, thank you for answering the question.
Hank?
Steve, the 1 million for the construction management service, is that part of the 18? Or is that additional?
Yes, sir.
So in reality, if they don't expend all that funds, then it's in the budget, but it's unspent?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Richard?
Chair, no questions. Steve, thank you for the comprehensive overview.
Yeah, I have no questions either. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Is there any comments? Matt?
Matthew Coulter, I have some questions, being that I went to a solid waste management meeting, and we've got a problem with recycling and waste in the county, big time. It's only going to get worse. I think with a facility at this cost, we should be working in green waste and solid waste of some type into it. When I was here last summer, it was a $12 million project, now $18 million project. That's an awesome increase, so somebody's really cashing in. With even a 10% more, 35%, like 1 year, less than a year. I'm watching the markets. They're not doing quite that on these commodities. So I don't know if this is something that is honestly being considered, that we can absorb a 35% increase in less than a year in a construction project. That I spoke on to the fact that a beautiful looking building, is it positioned towards the sun? Does it have solar panels on top? Or are we making energy out here and then shipping it over there? There's just a lot of things that need to be considered with the facility at such a cost and such a long-term investment, as well as just the concrete to make the facility. It's directly across the street almost from a concrete plant. Will we use them, or will we drag concrete from Sacramento and destroy our roads in the process? All these things need to be considered when building this. And something that is not haven't heard anything about. I think it's Goleta Creek that runs through there. I think it'll probably be put in a pipe and covered, as they are doing with Berryman Creek at the Berryman Ranch project behind Kmart. It's on the maps, it's on the historical records, yet the newer maps are eliminating our waterways and our green belts that have been here through eons. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other discussions? Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion in Weston, seconded by Supervisor Anderson. Madam Clerk?
District 4?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes. Next item is our County Council, Allison Barrett Green, a resolution authorizing participation of California counties opioid consortium approving a representation agreement between the County of Nevada and Barron and Budd, PC et al. For legal services related to opiate litigation on a contingency fee basis and authorizing the County Council to execute the agreement. Allison?
Thank you,
Seth?
Chair and members of the board. Before we start this item, we did have someone at public comment that wanted to speak, and we've learned that he did not want to speak on the consent item, agenda item.
Oh.
He actually did want to give some public comment, so I was wondering if we might go ahead and let him have public comment now prior to my item, if that's okay with the board.
I will reopen the public comment section. Sir, I apologize to you.
Thanks for entertaining my awkwardness with your jurisprudence. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Robert Nash. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My standing with you is my girlfriend who lives in Grass Valley. Long-term client of behavioral health. Had a very successful relationship with them under a psychiatrist named Dr. Long, who departed due to frustration with behavioral health. The psychiatrists who followed in after him are cruel and primitive and simply wiped out years of carefully constructed care plans and are now simply rubber stamping and issuing boilerplate care plans that don't work for everybody and very much has not worked for my girlfriend. She ended up in a commitment under 5150 Act, which was completely unnecessary and indeed was pursuant to a totally fabricated, falsified affidavit from the member of the agency that I'm here throwing stones at. I think the problems at behavioral health are deep enough that they're not able to fix them themselves. I suggest you find an outside consultant, some type of review, or in some way wading into the weeds on this. She was sent to a facility that has a standard I would compare to a Bolivian truck stop. Absolutely fetid, filthy. I think we're getting the point. So the thrust of my conversation is we need some review out at behavioral health. So my girlfriend has been without services because no contact with behavioral health is better than the horrible contact that she had. And too bad she isn't a cat or a dog. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. All right, we will go on to our next agenda item.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce to you, as you know him, Dr. Cutler, our public health officer. He's going to provide just a very brief overview of the opioid issue and how it affects our community, and that'll just be an entree into my brief discussion of the proposal for this representation agreement and to enter into this litigation.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, hi, Chair Schofield, supervisors, thanks for having me. So I'm going to try to condense the last 20 years into a 5-minute presentation on the opioid epidemic. You've heard this before. It's a bit of a refresher. Sorry about that. So this is really what we're talking about when we talk about the opioid epidemic. There's been a significant and distressing rise in the number of deaths related to opioids in the United States over the last 20 or so years. If you took a closer look at this, you would see that initial rise of that top line here is really driven by prescription medicines, prescription painkillers. And then you start to see a rise in heroin around 2010 beginning, as people started to look for cheaper alternatives, sometimes easier to obtain. And then more recently, since 2013, we've seen this rise in deaths due to fentanyl, which is a very powerful opioid that has been laced into other opioids or sometimes in counterfeit pills like we saw in Sacramento a few years ago. So those are essentially the three waves of the opioid epidemic that people are talking about. As I've discussed with you before, unintentional drug overdose deaths are large in the United States, much larger than what we see with motor vehicle traffic deaths now, which are about 40,000 a year. We had over 60,000 deaths in the United States from drug overdoses in 2016. Over 40,000 of those were from opioids. So we've had drug overdose death rises before, but never to this extent. One of the things we've talked about with the heroin rise is that if you talk to people who use heroin, the majority started with prescription pills. And you'll see here that addiction to a prescription opioid painkiller is a major, major risk factor for moving on to heroin. So what drove these increased deaths with prescription pills? Well, the number of pills that were actually prescribed in the United States, if you look at a morphine milligram equivalent, because codeine isn't the same as fentanyl, so we try to find what an equivalent is. And if you follow how much morphine equivalent goes out there, there's been a tripling to almost a quadrupling in 16 years in the United States. And this just shows you again that top line are opioid sales, and then you have in parallel with that opioid deaths and substance use admissions. And you can see this on a national scale, you can see this on a state scale, you can see this on a local area. And this is really to tell you that this has been US-centric. We're not seeing similar rise as in other countries. It started when we started to see marketing campaigns go up and get serious funding behind them. And some of the messages were that addiction is actually quite rare, but that turned out not to be true, that opioids are safe and effective for chronic pain. And as our former CDC head, Dr. Frieden, said, the science for opioids for chronic pain is clear, and for the vast majority, there are known serious and too often fatal risks, which outweigh the unproven and transient benefits. So one thing to know is that the opioid epidemic hasn't hit the United States in a uniform way, right? We know that our friends in the Midwest, in the East, have had higher impacts than we have, but every state in the United States has been affected. And if you look at California, once again, where you see a concentration of prescriptions is where you see a concentration of deaths. I just did a snapshot from 2013, but if you pick any year, the correlation's there. And this, I know, is busy, but you can go to the California opioid dashboard and look at the different counties in California, prescriptions, emergency room visits due to opioids, deaths, etc. And this is really to show you that while we've done much better recently locally in terms of the number of prescriptions for opioids going out, we're still well above the state average. And you see that we're above the state average for deaths, and we're above the state average for emergency room visits as well. And as we've talked about before, it's important to know that the impact goes well beyond the deaths associated with opioids. That for every death, there are multiple emergency room visits, multiple people who are seeking substance use care, many people with abuse and dependence issues, and many non-medical users. And this doesn't even start to take into account the impact on our criminal justice system, on child protective services, on families, and others in the community. So we've been trying to approach it through a variety of ways. We have several local coalitions that have worked on safe prescribing, that have tried to increase the availability of an opioid reversal agent called naloxone, having better drug disposal, and all of that locally is starting to have some effect. And so there is increased awareness. There are some more treatment options locally that's happening. We have seen declines in prescriptions. And if you look, we peaked in about 2011 in terms of morphine milliequivalents going to our residents. California's had to decline. Nevada County, we started higher, and we've been declining a little faster than state average. So not as much of an improvement as I would like to see, but we're on the road to improvement. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cutler. So as you can see, there's been a direct impact on Nevada County as a result of this opioid epidemic. We've seen some increased costs, both in terms of treatment and services being provided to our various clients and customers. We also anticipate that there are increased costs due to health insurance costs, employee overtime that has to be spent to address some of these issues, and other areas that may not be quite as obvious. We know that there are also going to be and are going to be increased costs related to prevention efforts, as well as costs associated with jailing residents that are addicted to these various opioids. So what can we do about this? There is national litigation now pending in an Ohio district court related to opioid litigation. It's called the Opioid Multi-District Litigation. The epidemic is believed to have, as Dr. Cutler mentioned, to have been created largely by manufacturers and distributors who were falsely advertising their product as being safe and non-addictive. They also had notice of the rapid increase in the number of prescriptions and the distribution of these pills, and failed to report them to the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency as required by law. Over 380 public entities have now entered into this litigation, including over 100 counties. And as I mentioned, all the cases are currently consolidated in district court in Ohio. As you can imagine, with all those cases, it has become a real administrative struggle for the courts to handle this litigation. Next slide. Thank you. So we have an opportunity to join a California Counties Opioid Consortium. This started out as an informal agreement between about 6 counties, including our neighboring counties of Placer, El Dorado, Yuba, and Sutter, and Butte. The idea was, once we came together and said, boy, we should work on this together, it's a big effort and we'll take some resources, it caught on. We now have 20 counties, and just as I was sitting here today, I got emails from 2 more counties who are interested in joining with the consortium. These are mainly rural counties who, like us, are small, have limited resources, and want to work together to participate in this effort. The goal is to file the same complaint on the same day, using the same litigation strategy and the same messaging to the court, so that we can get some real, what we call a real seat at the table in this massive litigation. If you can imagine, our county alone would be a fly on the wall. 20-some California counties working together have the potential to make a statement in that litigation. The goal is to develop a multi-county litigation team that will help manage the litigation, be a liaison with outside counsel, and it gives us an opportunity to pool resources and to reduce our workloads in a way that allows small rural counties to participate in this effort. Next slide. So what we're proposing is to hire Barron and Budd. It's a large national law firm. They specialize in representing public entities. They're the only firm that we've found that consistently represents only public entities, or mostly, I won't say only, mostly public entities. We felt the 6 counties that were originally involved in the consortium selected this firm. That includes me and Nevada County. And we felt they had the size, the national experience, and the strong strategic position in this multi-district litigation to help represent our interests. This includes, by the way, of all these 380 cases, there are 3 plaintiffs' firms actually sitting at the table where that are talking directly to the judge. You can imagine a room full of nothing but lawyers, but only 3 of them actually get to talk to the judge. This firm and the law firms that they're associated with have one of those seats at the table. They also have a very sophisticated tools and structure to keep these counties together and to represent our interests, including monthly phone calls with the attorneys and providing regular updates so that we know what's going on. This is on a contingency fee basis. The contingency fee is 18%, which is a very good deal for counties. And it requires no upfront cost from the county. The county only pays for these attorneys and for this case if we recover money. If we don't recover money, we pay nothing. So it's almost it's a low risk, no cost kind of situation. And of course, the reward would be if we were able to recover some funds for our general fund through this litigation. Next slide. So our recommended action is to adopt the resolution authorizing participation in this California Counties Opioid Consortium, approving the representation agreement, and then approving me to sign any related documents that we need to execute to be part of this consortium.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Doctor. Questions? Richard?
Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Chair Schofield. So, Allison, from what you're saying, this sounds as if this firm, Barron and Budd PC, has a seat at the table, and I presume that their contingency percentage, 18%, is it the lowest of the 3 firms or 3 attorneys, 3 firms that have a seat at the table with the judge, or is this a high percentage? When we first interviewed these firms, they gave us between 18 and 20%. Barron and Budd originally was asking for 25 because we're participating in the consortium. They have agreed to lower that contingency to 18% because of the efficiencies they will get by representing multiple counties using the same strategy. There are firms, to be honest, that have gone as low as 15.5%. However, we don't feel that those firms have the standing in the litigation or the ability to manage this litigation in the way that Barron and Budd does. I mean, keep in mind, we are looking for a firm that can do as much of the heavy lifting for us as possible, including coming in and helping us with documents, having databases to manage those documents, and having the resources to really minimize the impact on our county. So we feel that the contingency fee is both fair, reasonable, and certainly worth what we're getting for that money. And as you noted, it's a I believe you said low risk, no cost program. Although there is a cost to the county in terms of staff resources invested, what do you see as that investment in terms of number of hours of county council staff?
Right now, we're anticipating maybe 6 to 8 hours.
6 to 8 hours?
6 to 8 hours just to get the complaint on file.
Okay. And with regard to the proceeds, if there are any, you noted that they'll go to the general fund. Has staff made any determination how they might be spent once they are placed in the general fund, or is that still to be determined by the board?
It's still too early to be determined.
Okay.
We don't know how much we might get out of this. I mean, right now they're in the process of kind of pooling resources with the defendants, creating damages models, those kinds of things. One of the reasons we want to move now is so that we have a voice at that table to try to help influence how those damages are being calculated and allocated.
Okay, thank you, Allison.
Dan?
Yeah, well, thanks, Richard, for asking 2 of my questions. I'm left with just a comment now. And we see that rural counties are really the ones that are suffering as far as opioid addiction. And I think seeing that our county is above the state average is sobering to us, understanding that this is a problem that's not going to go away. And I think that justifies really our participation in this. So thanks for the answer on the county staff time involved, because that was something that I was concerned with. But after the presentation and seeing what we're up against, yeah, I have no problem with this.
Thank you, Dan. Hank? No question. Heidi? No questions? I have no questions. Public? Matt?
Matthew Coulter. Would this be going after Purdue Pharmacy, or who exactly are we suing?
Purdue is one of the potential defendants here.
So you're going after the big guys. Because I guess oxycodone is owned by one family. They've been fined millions and billions of dollars for false advertising, but they don't really seem to care. And they build art galleries, and yeah. And with the fentanyl thing, is really interesting because that product went from under $300 for a 30-day dose to over $3,000. And during the research on that, they were sending it all over to Afghanistan for the soldiers to suck on the fentanyl pops to stay awake and continue to do their jobs. The VA is a heavy, heavy drug pusher, and especially with the opiates, they're immensely excited about getting everyone hooked on them. So Purdue, and then is it subcontractors or Purdue? Or I'm just curious, like, how many tentacles is this firm really willing to go after?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. All right, any other discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So, second.
Motion Supervisor Weston, seconded Supervisor Hall. Madam Clerk?
District 4? District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5? District 2?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
All right, supervisors, we are down to announcements. None? Oh. You want to do announcements? Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, with that, this meeting's adjourned.